Welcome on in, guys. Three bold takes. And again, our offseason begins with obviously discussing 2023 because it just ended, right? This week just ended national championship. With that being said, though, we want to discuss five teams, as you see on the graphic here, that are the most surprising teams in all of college football in 2023. We each brought a team, and then we have two that we collectively agree on. So we'll go round robin style to discuss our teams, and then collectively we'll discuss the teams that we agree on. Quinn or Chase, let's go with you first here with your team.
Yeah, guys, I'm speaking for all of America when I chose this team. I think this is America's team. I think this is the nation's team, and that's the Arizona Wildcats. And no, guys, this is not a college basketball YouTube podcast, show, whatever. This is football. College football and the Arizona Wildcats, one of the most surprising teams all year long. Easily. You lose in the second week to Mississippi State, who was absolutely terrible this year, and everybody's like, it's Arizona. And then you lose to Washington, you lose to USC by one score game or one score in both games. Then you beat Washington State, Oregon State, UCLA, Colorado, Utah, and rattle off about 6 wins, it looks like. Well, seven to end the year because as well you beat Oklahoma in your bowl game. Oklahoma looked really good besides one small slip up, beating their rival as well in Texas this season. So Oklahoma's looked pretty good. Arizona just absolutely blew up on the map. That Noah Fafita, a redshirt freshman quarterback, just going absolutely insane this year, playing. I don't even know how to properly explain how, because like it was kind of a blink of an eye looking at Arizona and how good they ended up being. Just looking at the schedule that they had, looking at the team that they had, I think they got a couple transfer portal guys that really helped them out. But Noah Fafita was a huge addition that just really came onto the map really quickly. It's small guy, 5'11". But what Arizona did this year is easily the best out of any because Arizona is typically not well known for their football. I'm gonna go back to the year before. They had one, two, three, four, 5 wins, and they ended up with 10 this year, I believe it was. Just absolutely phenomenal job this year between the coaching staff and the players to make them a very competitive team. And then also now they're going to be in the Big 12 next year. And again, the redshirt freshman quarterback, I think that they could end up being a top 4 to 5 team in the Big 12 next year with how kind of wonky the setup is now. Quinn?
They also,
Yeah,
I want to mention this though, real quick. They also only won one game 2 years ago.
yeah,
So let's
Come
not
on.
forget that their only win that year was against Cal, 10-3. So huge improvements. Quinn.
yeah. I can't say anything other than Arizona is the perfect fit for this video. Like, just really looking forward to what they do in the Big 12 next year. And another team I got on this list will be playing them in the Big 12 next year, and that's the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Now, when it comes to preseason expectations, they weren't in my top five for Big 12 teams. That top five was Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas State, Texas Tech, and can't remember. They might have been five, but I don't believe they were. I believe it was probably Kansas or Iowa State, if I had to guess. Uh, then when they lost that game to South Alabama, and this is the reason they're on this list for me. And we've brought this up in other uh, videos on our channel. We all like left Oklahoma State for absolute dead. Like, we were talking about how Mike Gundy is done, and we threw him in. They're not on this list, but we threw him and Kirk Ferentz in the same like boat and cast them off to sea about how terrible they were and how they've been around for too long and they've lost their touch and they need to be gone. And all Kirk Ferentz did was put together a 10-win season. Now, you could say it might be the worst 10-win season ever, but it was a 10-win season. And all Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy did was win the last Bedlam game in a series that they historically like never win, get to the Big 12 title game. Now, sure, they got run out of the building by Texas, but they got there in a year where, again, I wasn't sure they were going to be bowl eligible after South Alabama beat them. Because South Alabama didn't just beat them. South Alabama like outplayed them that day. Uh, and then, they finished it the right way. They won their bowl game in the Texas Bowl against Texas A&M. quality win, and a building block onto the next year. And frankly, you start looking at the landscape of the future Big 12. And I think the thing that makes me so excited for the Big 12 going forward is that no one who I look at and I go, they're just going to run the Big 12 forever. Like, there's not a single team. There's probably a good like 6 or 8 that I can look at and go, they could be super competitive in this league. But there's nobody who I think is going to just own the conference. But if there's any one team that you like told me you have to pick somebody, Oklahoma State would be in my top 3. They'd be right there with, I guess, Utah and Kansas State as like my 3 that if I had to, someone's going to own the Big 12, it's this team. I'm not going to give up on Gundy, man. I think he proved that he's going to keep winning at Oklahoma State. And are they ever going to be like the powerhouse of college football? No. But they're going to be a team that you don't want to meet when you're not on your best day.
Yeah, it's huge. I would agree because it wasn't just the South Alabama game; they also got beat by Iowa State the very next week. So those two put together, man, yeah, we dedicated a whole video to Gundy being fired. We did. So might want to take that video down now. But my team is going to be Northwestern, right? You may remember Northwestern the offseason of last year. Huge scandals, coaches fired, player hazing, that sort of thing. But also, since 2018, they only made a bowl game once, and that was during COVID in 2020, where they went 7-2. Do you want to know their record last year? 1-11. 1-11. The only game they won was the first game of the year in Ireland against Nebraska, which was a fantastic game to watch, by the way. But that was the only win of the year. What did they do this year? They went 8-5 and made a bowl game. And not only made a bowl game, they won a bowl game against Utah 14-7 this year. So what a turnaround Northwestern has had in the face of adversity and scandalism, in the face of winning one game last year. I mean, you look at Colorado, they won one game last year, and they only won 4 games and didn't make a bowl game, right? Arizona 2 years ago won 1 game. Last year, they won 5. This year, after a 1-11 season, 8-5. Congratulations, Northwestern, on a bowl win. Huge. I think this sets your program up for success moving forward. And I'm excited to see it because Northwestern's always been a team that, in my mind, it is not a powerhouse, but it is a team that every now and then can give you a 9-10 win season and shock the world in a couple of games. So I'm always hoping for teams to continue to do that, especially when they have the history of doing that. And that is Northwestern football moving forward. Now, those were our 3 that we kind of talked about, right? And we brought and we believed. Now we have 2 teams up here on the graphic that we haven't yet talked about, and that is Missouri and Louisville. And these are 2 teams that we kind of collectively agreed on, definitely shocked us and shocked all of college football. I want to start first with Louisville, right? We'll save the best for last in Missouri because Chase has some special thoughts about Missouri. But Louisville overall 10-4, right? And when you look at that record, it's more so it's a good record for Louisville, 10 wins, right? Coming into the year, there were some people that had Louisville making it to the conference championship game or finishing top 3 in the conference. And coming in, I kind of agreed, but was also a little skeptical. The only reason why I agreed was because their schedule suited up for that, right? They had an easier schedule for the entire year. But Louisville going 10-4. Now, they did lose their last 3 games to Kentucky, Florida State, and USC. So, Quinn, let's start with you on Louisville. What are your thoughts on them in 2023 and then potentially moving forward?
Yeah, I was down to put them here on this list just because I think there's a lot of people who don't like deep dive into what the schedule is going to look like for a team. As far as them being a double-digit win team and making the ACC title, that didn't shock me at all because I knew they were playing like a super, super light schedule. And if there was enough upsets in the ACC, they like teams getting each other out of the way, primarily either Clemson or Florida State, not having the best year in the world, that they would end up in Charlotte. But you know, I personally think it was like it's a great first step. I mean, I think it's important to remember this is Brom's first year at Louisville, and they've already got a 10-win season. You look at the future of what is the ACC. We don't know what the ACC is going to be in 3 or 4 years. It's not a secret that the big dogs in that conference are looking to get out. So what happens with a team like Louisville? I don't know. But with Jeff Brom at the helm, you think that they're definitely going to find somewhere to land because they are building themselves. And I think it goes back to like the Teddy Bridgewater days at Louisville. Since then, they've built themselves into a pretty legitimate brand. They were good in those days in the American Conference. They were by far the best team in the American when the American first developed out of the Big East. Then they came to the ACC and they were super competitive with Lamar Jackson at the helm in the ACC. And they took a couple years off, but now here they are again, and their logos back up on the main stage in the ACC. And like you said, I think a lot of people were not registering Louisville at all on their radar. It doesn't help when you open the season on like a Thursday night where everyone can watch if they want to in week 1 against Georgia Tech and you nearly lose. And everyone kind of understands that Georgia Tech not a good football team, which they kind of were this year, but that's a whole another topic for another day. So to get to that 10 wins, I think they definitely earned their spot on most surprising teams in 2023.
Yeah, and to add, this is the first time in Louisville's history as a Power 5 team that they've had a 10-win season. So think about those Bobby Petrino days with Lamar, with Teddy Bridgewater. They didn't have 10 wins. That's actually kind of surprising to see. Definitely, if you watch the ACC game when Jake Plummer put up an egg for the team. But yeah, I think this is a beautiful story and why I love having them here. This is kind of like if Scott Frost went to Nebraska and had his success story like he was supposed to. Jeff Brom, your guy who's been, a middle of the road coach at Purdue, but always had really great wins and upset wins over some big teams in the Big Ten. And then he gets to come home to his alma mater. And the first season, you're in the ACC championship game, you got 10 wins, and you're putting this team out there. And it's beautiful to watch that because that's what you love about college football and sports as a whole is this kind of story. So for Jeff Brom to be able to come home and do this in his first season, now it's kind of like Brian Kelly and LSU, though. The expectations are high. Louisville should be a top 4 team in the ACC, right? Not sure if they're going to stick there, but Jeff Brom did an excellent job in his first year, bringing in some transfer portal guys, definitely on the offensive side of the ball that really pushed them into this top 2 of the ACC this year. So really good job of capitalizing there and then just taking advantage of the schedule that you had down the stretch.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with you guys here. Last team, right? Missouri. Now, they were picked to finish 6th in the SEC East, not in the SEC overall, but the SEC East. And what did they do, right? They go out and they win 11 wins. They go 11-2. Their only 2 losses was a close loss to LSU at home, honestly, very easily. Excuse me, could have won that game. Then they go to Georgia and play Georgia tight 30-21. They end up taking the loss. And how they end the year, they end with a Cotton Bowl win against Ohio State, one of the biggest brands in college football. I didn't see this coming. Most of the TV personalities did not see this coming because, let's be honest, those are the ones that voted them 6th in the SEC East. Chase, I know you didn't see this coming, and I think you're still in denial personally. But we'll let you go first here. I want to hear your thoughts on Missouri in 2023, and does this set them up for success in the future or no?
You're terrible for asking that second question, Freddie, because you know where I'm going to go. But since Drinkwitz has been there, he got there in what is that, 2020? It looks like 5-5, 6-7, and 6-7, and then this year. I think the reason, and look. I'm not a huge fan of Missouri, not a huge fan of Drinkwitz. I'll put it out there. If you guys have watched any videos, you guys might know that. Yes, they're on one of the most surprising teams because you just beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl and finished with 11-win season. I think that is absolutely phenomenal. However, you have to point to a lot of veteran leadership on that team that kept them in these games. A lot of 5th and 6th-year guys that, frankly, if this is before COVID, these guys aren't even on the team. I think, and I'm going to go back to Freddie's question. Does this set them up for future success? I think this sets them up for future failure because now you're making this bam, hey, they just won 11 games, and then it's going to switch back to they might win 8 next year, 7. And they're going to go back to the middle of the road kind of pack that they are, definitely with Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC as well. Now, this is a surprising season, great season. I think Mizzou, again, it surprised everybody. They shouldn't even been close to being there, but to be the second team in the East behind Georgia, everybody had high hopes for Tennessee and everybody, and so Missouri kind of flew under the radar. They had a lot of great guys on this team in the first 11 to win season since they went to the SEC championship in 2014. So, Drinkwitz did an excellent job this year, capitalized on the players that he had, the team that he had, but do not expect this from Missouri next year. Bookmark it, clip this part of the video. I don't care if you're a Missouri fan or whatever. They might hit 8 wins next year, and that's being very, very generous. I think Brady Cook is coming back, but a lot of these other guys are going to go to the draft. I think he's had some success recruiting, but at the same point, Drinkwitz is not the coach that is going to give you 10 wins every single season. I just don't see that. Quinn?
I'll start with this. As far as them being the most surprising, I know they were preseason picked to finish 6th in the East. I think I had them at either 4th or 5th. I can't remember if I had them in front of or behind South Carolina. I'm thinking I had them at 5. So yeah, definitely a surprising year. I knew there was a little bit of murmurs from, I think it was Cole Kublik, who I'd heard in the summer, was talking about Missouri as a potential surprise team in 2023, strictly because they had a lot of seniors. As far as this team, first off, winning the Cotton Bowl, by the way, huge. I have a personal list I keep up with. I call it like since the 98 season when we started playing our first real national title games in college football. I have a legacy score sheet that I keep up with team success in terms of making a big bowl game and stuff of that nature. Ohio State is the second highest ranked team on that list. There are only 2 programs to go over 100 points, and they are one of those 2. So that was a huge win for Missouri in that bowl game. As far as future success for Missouri, what do you classify as success for Missouri? If you're asking me, is this season going to build Missouri towards becoming like a prominent national program? No, it will not. Missouri is not going to be that. Missouri is going to continue to be 6 to 9 wins a year. But I classify that as success at Missouri. And I know Chase has this belief that every single program should exclusively be striving to be the most dominant football program in the sport. And if you're not striving to do that, you're not good. I just think that's ludicrous and not a good understanding of college football. It's not a sport built on parity like professional sports. It's something that you slowly over decades build yourself towards. And the start of that is you've got to recognize what tier you're in and become the most dominant team of that tier. The tier Missouri's in the SEC, you have your top tier are your perennial dominant programs. For a while, that was Alabama and LSU. Now I would argue that is Alabama, Georgia, with Texas and LSU right there with them. Like those are the 4. Then below that, you've got your tier of teams that, like, if things go perfectly right, they could win a title. Tennessee fits in that tier. Oklahoma fits in that tier. Oklahoma might be a tier higher, but neither here nor there. You have teams that you think can win a national title. You've seen them do it. They've proved it. Then you got teams that you haven't seen do it. Missouri falls in that category. They're in the same boat with like Arkansas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Kentucky. And if you're asking me, is Missouri in a situation going forward where they can be the best team in that group of teams? I very much think that's possible out of Drinkwitz. I think that his coaching staff is legit. I think it's one of the better coaching staffs, top to bottom, in the conference. I put it top half easily. I would maybe even consider it top quarter. Um, and what that suggests is, sure, are they going to come back next year and be like a 6-win team? More than likely. But what about 3 years from now when those guys that go 6-6 and then go 8-4 are juniors and seniors like this year's round of teams? And that's what you look for in success in Missouri. It's not like a mentality of the biggest programs in the sport where every year you're going to reload and just never be bad. That's not the reality of what Missouri does. The reality of what Missouri does is they get a group of guys in and they go through their lumps for a year or 2 or 3, and then when they're older and they're like juniors and seniors, they take those lumps and they turn them into a dominant uh, season where they get 9, 10, 11 wins and cap it off with a Cotton Bowl and go out feeling really good. And now in the future of college football, that would be making a playoff run. And you do that 3, 4, 5 times in like 15 years as Missouri, and you look back on it, you've had more playoff appearances than most of the teams in the SEC. And then at that point, that's when you start moving into that next tier up. So could they build off of this year? Absolutely, they could.
Yeah, and Chase, also what you said about them only winning eight games if they're lucky is preposterous. If you look at their schedule, who they draw in the SEC, you've got Vandy, Texas A&M, Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Mississippi State and Arkansas. So personally, your three toughest games: Texas A&M, Alabama, and Oklahoma. So very real possibility that they could be in a situation again next year, but this time with a chance to make the college football playoff as it is expanded to 12. So super exciting stuff, guys. I appreciate you joining in and watching and listening to our most surprising teams of 2023. Off season's beginning. Plenty more videos coming soon. Please subscribe and stay tuned, and we will see you guys next time.